Tonight, you find yourself traveling along a lonely road in the year 1287, long after the last light of sunset has vanished behind the distant hills. The world around you is quiet, except for the rhythmic sound of your horse's hooves striking the damp earth beneath. A cold wind drifts across the countryside, carrying the scent of pine trees, wet soil, and smoke from hearth fires burning somewhere far away. Above you, countless stars fill the sky, brighter than anything seen in the modern world, their pale light stretching across the darkness like scattered diamonds. You have spent 3 days on the road, crossing forest, rivers, and empty fields, and all you want now is a warm meal, a dry bed, and a few hours of uninterrupted sleep. Fortunately, according to the map tucked inside your coat, a village called Black Hollow should be just ahead. The problem is that nobody you met during your journey had anything pleasant to say about Black Hollow. Some claimed the village was cursed. Others insisted people disappeared there without explanation. One old merchant became so uncomfortable when the village was mentioned that he immediately changed the subject and refused to answer any further questions. At the time, you dismissed the stories as ordinary medieval superstition. Every village has its legends. Every traveler has a frightening tale. Yet as the road bends around a hill and the first rooftops finally appear through the fog, you begin to understand why those stories survived for so long. Black Hollow does not look welcoming. It looks abandoned. The houses stand silent beneath the moonlight. Their windows are dark. Their wooden walls appear weathered by centuries of rain and wind. No voices drift through the streets. No music comes from the tavern. No laughter echoes from nearby homes. It feels less like a living village and more like a place frozen in time. You guide your horse forward cautiously until you reach the village square. There, standing beneath an ancient oak tree, is a stone monument covered with faded carvings. Someone has recently placed fresh flowers at its base. Strange. A place this quiet should not feel watched. Yet the moment you enter the square, you cannot shake the feeling that unseen eyes are observing your every movement from behind closed shutters. Then, without warning, a nearby church bell rings once. The deep sound rolls through the village like distant thunder. Almost instantly, lights begin appearing behind windows. Doors open. Villagers step outside. Within moments, dozens of people have emerged from their homes, staring directly at you. Nobody speaks. Nobody smiles. They simply watch. The silence becomes so uncomfortable that you are forced to break it yourself. You raise a hand politely and introduce yourself as a traveler seeking lodging for the night. For several seconds, nobody responds. Then an elderly woman wrapped in a gray cloak steps forward. Her face is lined with age, but her eyes remain sharp and alert. "You should not have come here tonight," she says quietly. Before you can ask what she means, another villager quickly interrupts her. A tall man with broad shoulders forces a nervous smile and welcomes you to Black Hollow. The strange tension disappears almost immediately. Villagers begin speaking again. Some even laugh. Yet the old woman's warning remains trapped inside your thoughts like a splinter. The inn stands near the center of the village, a large timber building with a crooked roof and glowing lanterns hanging beside the entrance. Inside, the atmosphere is warm and inviting. A fire crackles in the hearth. The smell of roasted meat fills the air. Travelers and locals sit together at wooden tables, drinking ale and exchanging stories. For a moment, you wonder whether you imagine the strange welcome outside. Perhaps exhaustion is affecting your judgment. The innkeeper, a cheerful man named Roland, serves you a generous meal and offers a room upstairs. Everything seems perfectly normal until a young serving girl accidentally drops a plate. The loud crash instantly silences the room. Every conversation stops. Every face turns toward the window. Even the fire seems quieter somehow. The tension lasts only a few seconds before people return to their meals. But you notice something disturbing. Several guests are whispering prayers beneath their breath. Others appear genuinely frightened. Curious, you ask Roland what happened. His smile fades. "Nothing important," he says. "Just an old habit." The answer explains nothing. Later that evening, after finishing your meal, you decide to take a short walk through the village before sleeping. The streets are nearly empty now. A thin layer of fog drifts between the houses. Somewhere in the distance, a dog begins barking wildly before suddenly falling silent. As you wander, you notice strange symbols carved into several doorways. Some are painted in red. Others have been scratched directly into the wood. They resemble protective charms, the sort medieval people often used to ward off evil spirits. Yet there are far too many of them. Entire houses are covered in symbols. Even the church door bears dozens. The deeper you explore, the stranger the village becomes. Then you reach the edge of Black Hollow and stop. Beyond the final row of houses stands a forest unlike any you have ever seen. The trees are enormous. Their twisted branches stretch toward the sky like skeletal fingers. Thick fog coils between the trunks. Moonlight barely penetrates the darkness beneath the canopy. A wooden fence surrounds the forest's edge, though much of it has collapsed with age. Hanging from the fence are hundreds of small iron bells. The sight is unsettling. Why would anyone place bells around a forest? As you approach, a voice suddenly speaks behind you. "Do not cross that fence after sunset." You spin around. The elderly woman from earlier stands several feet away, her gray cloak moving gently in the wind. Before you can respond, she continues. "And if you hear someone calling your name from the trees, do not answer." Her voice is completely serious. No matter who it sounds like. You ask her what lives inside the forest. For a moment, she says nothing. Then she glances toward the dark woods. "Something old," she whispers. "Something that remembers." The woman turns and disappears into the fog before you can ask another question. You return to the inn with more questions than answers. Eventually, exhaustion wins. You climb the stairs, enter your room, and collapse onto the bed. Sleep arrives quickly. At least, it seems that way, because sometime later, you awaken to the sound of bells. Soft, distant, ringing somewhere beyond the village. At first you assume you are dreaming. Then the bells grow louder. One after another. Hundreds of them. Your eyes open. The room is dark. The fire downstairs has long since burned out. Outside the window, moonlight covers the village in silver light. The bells continue ringing. Slowly, you sit up. Something feels wrong. Very wrong. Then you hear it. A voice, faint at first, almost impossible to recognize. Yet as it calls again, your blood turns cold. The voice belongs to your mother. She died 10 years ago. And yet you would recognize that voice anywhere. "Come outside," it calls softly. "Please." You freeze. Logic tells you this cannot be real. But the voice sounds perfect. Every word, every breath, every detail. Then another voice joins it. Your father. Then your childhood friend. Then your brother. Each voice calling your name from somewhere beyond the village. The bells continue ringing. A cold chill crawls down your spine. Against your better judgment, you move toward the window. Outside, the village streets are empty. Yet beyond the final row of houses, near the forest fence, figures stand motionless in the moonlight. Dozens of them, human silhouettes, watching, waiting. One of them slowly raises an arm and beckons you forward. And although every instinct screams that something terrible is happening, you cannot look away from the dark forest where the voices of the dead continue calling your name through the night. You remain frozen beside the window while the voices continue drifting across the sleeping village, each one sounding more familiar than the last. The voice of your mother calls gently, exactly as she did when you were a child, returning home after sunset. Your father's voice follows, calm and reassuring. Then comes the voice of an old friend whose face you have not thought about in years. Every word sounds real. Every memory attached to those voices feels real. That is what makes the experience so terrifying. Deep down, you know the dead cannot be standing beside a forest in the middle of the night. Yet some primitive part of your mind desperately wants to believe otherwise. Outside, the figures remain motionless near the fence lined with iron bells. The fog curls around their feet. Moonlight reflects from the metal bells hanging along the wooden post, causing them to glitter faintly in the darkness. Then one of the figures takes a step backward towards the trees. Another follows. Then another, slowly, silently. They retreat into the forest while continuing to beckon. For a brief moment, curiosity nearly overpowers caution. You even place a hand on the door. Then you remember the old woman's warning. Do not answer. Do not follow, no matter who it sounds like. The memory strikes you like cold water. You pull your hand away and back toward the bed. The voices continue for nearly an hour before finally fading into the distance. One by one, the bells stop ringing until only silence remains. When sleep eventually returns, it is restless and filled with strange dreams of dark trees, forgotten faces, and distant footsteps moving through fog. Morning arrives beneath gray clouds. The village appears normal again. Smoke rises from chimneys. Farmers walk toward their fields. Children chase each other through muddy streets. If not for the exhaustion weighing on your body, you might almost believe the previous night never happened. Yet when you descend to the common room of the inn, you immediately notice something unusual. Several villagers are gathered around a table speaking in hushed voices. Their expressions are tense. One woman is crying. A man repeatedly removes and replaces his hat while staring at the floor. Nobody notices you at first. Then Roland, the innkeeper, spots you and quickly changes the subject. The conversation ends instantly. The room falls silent. You have seen enough suspicious behavior during your travels to recognize when people are hiding something. Before anyone can leave, you ask a simple question. What happened? Nobody answers. The crying woman lowers her eyes. Finally, Roland sighs heavily. A boy is missing. The words hang in the air. Missing. Not dead. Not injured. Missing. According to the villagers, a 14-year-old shepherd named Elias disappeared sometime during the night. His family found his bed empty at dawn. The door to their home had been left open. Footprints led away from the village toward the forest before vanishing completely near the fence. Nobody says it directly, but everyone seems to understand what happened. The forest took him. As the day progresses, a search party forms. Despite the warnings and fear surrounding the woods, nobody is willing to abandon the missing boy. You volunteer to help. Perhaps it is guilt for remaining safely inside while another person followed the voices. Perhaps it is simple curiosity. Either way, by midday you find yourself standing beside a dozen nervous villagers at the edge of the forest. The old woman from the previous night is there as well. Her face looks older in daylight, more tired. She studies the trees with obvious concern. Before the search begins, she hands every participant a small iron bell attached to a leather cord. Most villagers immediately hang the bells around their necks. When she offers one to you, you ask why they are necessary. Because the forest likes silence, she replies, and because it hates iron. Nobody laughs. Nobody questions her explanation. The villagers accept it as ordinary fact. Moments later, the search begins. Crossing the fence feels strangely significant, as though you are stepping from one world into another. The temperature drops immediately beneath the trees. Sunlight struggles to penetrate the thick canopy overhead. The forest floor is covered in roots, moss, and fallen leaves. Every sound seems muffled. Even the birds are absent. Only the occasional ringing of iron bells breaks the silence as villagers move between the trees. Hours pass without success. No footprints, no torn clothing, no signs of struggle, nothing. Then one of the searchers calls out. Everyone rushes towards the sound. Near the base of an enormous oak tree lies a wooden shepherd's staff, Elias's staff. The missing boy was definitely here. Relief quickly turns into dread when another discovery is made. Carved into the trunk above the staff is a symbol, a circle surrounding an eye, freshly cut into the bark. The mark appears far too deliberate to be accidental. Several villagers immediately make the sign of the cross. Others refuse to look directly at it. When you ask what it means, nobody answers. The old woman simply tells everyone to keep moving. The deeper you travel into the forest, the stranger everything becomes. The trees grow larger. The fog thickens. More carved symbols appear on trunks and stones. Sometimes you think you see movement between distant branches, only for it to disappear when you focus on it. More than once, you hear faint whispers carried by the wind. Every time it happens, the villagers ring their bells nervously. Then, sometime during the afternoon, you discover something impossible. Hidden among the trees stands an ancient stone road. Massive blocks of weathered rock form a path leading deeper into the forest. Moss covers most of the surface, yet enough remains visible to reveal its age. This road is centuries older than the village itself, perhaps older than the kingdom. Nobody seems surprised by its existence. In fact, several villagers immediately become frightened. One man refuses to continue. Another insists they should turn back. Their fear grows stronger with every step along the forgotten road. Eventually, the path leads to a clearing. The sight waiting there steals the breath from your lungs. At the center of the clearing stands a ruined tower rising above the surrounding trees. Its upper floors collapsed long ago, leaving only jagged stone walls reaching toward the sky. Vines cover much of the structure. Cracks run through the ancient masonry. Yet despite centuries of decay, the tower still feels powerful, important, dangerous. Dozens of black crows perch upon the broken walls. None of them make a sound. The old woman stares at the tower for several seconds before whispering a prayer. "We should leave," someone says. Nobody argues. Then a scream echoes from inside the ruins. The search party rushes forward. Inside the tower's shattered entrance lies the missing shepherd boy. Elias is alive. Barely. He is curled against a wall, trembling uncontrollably. His eyes are wide with terror. Mud covers his clothes. Deep scratches run along his arms. Several villagers immediately kneel beside him. The boy recognizes nobody. He simply stares toward the dark interior of the tower and repeats the same sentence again and again. "It knows my name." At first, nobody understands what he means. Then he speaks again, louder this time. "It knows all our names." Fear spreads through the group. Even the old woman looks shaken. Before anyone can question him further, a loud sound echoes from somewhere deep below the tower. A heavy impact. Then another. Then another. It sounds like footsteps. Enormous footsteps. Something is moving beneath the ruins. Nobody waits for confirmation. Panic erupts instantly. Villagers grab the boy and begin retreating towards the forest. The footsteps continue. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Dust falls from the tower ceiling. Loose stones tumble from ancient walls. Whatever exists beneath the ruins is awake. As you hurry toward the entrance, curiosity forces you to glance back one final time. In the darkness below, far beneath the ruined tower, two enormous pale eyes slowly open. The moment those pale eyes opened beneath the ruined tower, something ancient seemed to awaken throughout the entire forest. A deep vibration rolled through the ground beneath your feet. Dust drifted from the cracked stone walls. The crows perched on the tower exploded into the sky all at once, creating a storm of black wings above the clearing. Nobody needed to be told to run. The villagers grabbed Elias and fled into the trees as fast as their legs would carry them. Branches snapped. Bells rang wildly. Breath burned inside your lungs as you followed them along the forgotten stone road. Behind you, the heavy footsteps continued. Slow, deliberate, unhurried. Whatever was beneath the tower did not seem concerned about losing sight of its prey. It sounded like something that had waited a very long time and knew it would eventually catch what it wanted. The forest itself appeared different now, darker somehow. The fog thickened so rapidly that trees vanished only a few yards away. Shadows moved where no shadows should exist. Several times you thought you saw human figures standing silently between the trunks, watching the terrified villagers race past. Each time you looked directly at them, they disappeared. The old woman led the group forward without hesitation, clutching her iron bell so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared look back. By the time the village finally appeared through the fog, night was beginning to fall. The sight of the rooftops should have brought relief, yet the expressions on the villagers' faces suggested otherwise. They looked frightened, not merely because of what had happened at the tower, but because they knew what came next. The moment everyone crossed the fence surrounding the forest, the old woman ordered the gates closed. Heavy wooden barriers were dragged into place. Every iron bell in the village began ringing. Men climbed onto rooftops. Women hurried children indoors. Doors slammed shut one after another. It resembled preparations for a siege. Yet no army stood outside the walls. Only a silent forest and the approaching darkness. Inside the inn, villagers gathered around tables illuminated by candlelight. Fear filled the roofs like smoke. Elias sat near the fireplace, wrapped in blankets. His hands shook continuously. Several times people tried questioning him about what happened inside the tower, but every answer was fragmented and confused. He spoke of voices calling from the darkness, faces appearing in the fog, dreams that felt more real than waking life. Most disturbing of all was his description of the thing beneath the ruins. According to Elias, he never actually saw its full form. He only saw its eyes, pale, enormous, watching from the darkness. Yet somehow he knew it was older than the village, older than the kingdom, older than memory itself. The boy insisted that the creature had spoken to him without using words. It had shown him images instead. Images of the forest before people existed. Images of great stone cities swallowed by time. Images of countless faces staring from the darkness. And throughout every vision, the creature had repeated the same message. Soon, nobody slept that night. Outside, the bells continued ringing softly in the wind. Midnight arrived beneath heavy clouds that concealed the stars. The village remained awake. Candles burned in every window.